Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Table Talk with Brenda Perryman, right here today, August 9th, 2013. And I'd like to say happy birthday to my youngest child, Courtney Perryman. Happy birthday, Courtney. Many happy returns of the day. And welcome to Table Talk in this post-election edition of Table Talk. Plus, we have some other things to discuss that I think that you will really, really like. But first and foremost, I'd like to introduce my co-hosts to you, or they introduce yourselves. Gentlemen?
Good evening. My name is Robert Thomas. I'm on the Board of Zoning Appeals for the City of Detroit and a third-year law student at Wayne State University's Law School.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Summerall. I am a proud firefighter for the citizens of the City of Detroit.
And he's looking good in that blue today. I'm Ken Coleman, Detroit political and media consultant.
Yeah, I love work clothes. You know that. I love to see a man in work clothes. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I love to see a man in work clothes, and we all know that. But first and foremost, we're going to start, as is our tradition, we start with Ken Coleman on this day in African American history in Detroit.
Well, thank you, Brenda. On this day, August the 9th, 1928, Frederick G. Sampson is born in Port Arthur, Texas. Of course, Reverend Sampson will go on to be the pastor at Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church. He will come to Detroit in 1971 and have a 30-year tenure as the spiritual leader of that great institution. He was born on this day in 1928.
Any other news?
Actually, it's a lot of news this week.
Okay, there's a lot of news, and some of this news is going to go down into history.
Absolutely. I
I don't know if it'll go into African American history, but it will go down in history. But first, we're going to start on the national front, and we talked a little about this week, but the momentum has kept up in the conversation. They have the conversation going, and that's about the fast food workers who have been walking out across the nation to protest for higher wages. They're asking for $15, but Robert, you have an interesting view on that.
Well, yeah, I think they were only asking for $15, trying to aim high. I want to say that I don't think they really wanted the $50. I think they really wanted the $15, but they were probably aiming for more like the $10 range to get them a couple of steps higher than the minimum wage. I believe it's like $7 an hour right now. So they want to bump it up and get that medium range of $10 an hour. They also want to unionize, and I believe all of that's being slapped down by the corporate offices of these fast food restaurants.
Because people are making a lot of money, the owners of these restaurants, a lot of them are making a lot of money, especially if you own multiple restaurants and you're in a good area, don't you think?
Well, yeah, but it's also a capitalistic society in which these companies have to make money, have to make a revenue, and if you're talking about $15 an hour salary, the burgers can go up, and now everybody probably slimmed down a bit more.
They said 65 cents,
but,
just 65 cents?
I'm not for sure about the 65
I heard
cent.
it.
Well, I can certainly understand both sides of the argument. I'm a free market capitalism guy too, but I'm also somebody who supports bargaining rights. And I think that one of the ways that we as Americans, and particularly as African Americans, have been able to increase our standard of living, send our kids to college and the like, is through meaningful employment and employment that is compensated in a way that you can actually live. I mean, $8 or $9 an hour as minimum wage is not a lot of money. And I agree with Robert that 15 was probably a negotiating tool, but certainly minimum wage needs to be increased in Michigan and throughout the state, country.
One of my first jobs was McDonald's, so, but I think that there's been a transition, whereas these jobs were at one time just jobs for younger folk, and they were only meant to transition into something better. Now these are looked at as career opportunities, and so you have a different dynamic of individuals who are actually applying for and keeping these jobs. I remember I worked for McDonald's a couple months, and then I left and went to Kroger's, and then I left and went to, but there are folks who are family heads who have these jobs, and they're looking at them as career options now, and it's especially in light of how the economy was down and there were no jobs for these individuals, so they latched on to this career opportunity, and now they're like, okay, I need some more money. So
and retirees too.
Retirees, yeah.
Yeah, but don't you think, you all made an interesting observation earlier, because working in them made you know that you did not want to work in them.
Well, yeah, I worked at, what was that, Little Caesars, Wendy's, Hardee's, Hungry Howie's, all starting at 15 years old, and, you know, being placed in that position just showed me that I probably wouldn't want to be there for the rest of my life. And I'm not trying to make a mockery of the system, because there's some people out there that actually need these type of jobs, and they work a multitude of these types of jobs. I have, matter of fact, I have brothers and sisters that work these type of jobs, and I just know that, you know, you can't make an income off of it. And it did, at an early age, it made me rethink my strategy on life. And
a livable wage,
yeah,
a livable wage,
yeah.
and that's important. Well, good luck to them. That's all I could say.
Absolutely.
Good luck to them. I just really, really wish. I know I had a lot of students who worked at McDonald's and Wendy's and everything, and they had money. But like you say, to be head of household, that's impossible. Yeah. Now, as far as the state news is concerned, one story really struck me, and that was the story of Dr. Fareed Fata, the doctor who had the nerve to tell some of his patients that they had cancer, and they didn't have cancer. And he's been charged with a $35 million Medicare scheme. And he had doctor's offices several places, and they were patronized by a lot of people, and people trusted him. And he was very, very dishonest. And we were talking about that. This one time he prescribed 56 doses of this one medication that I cannot pronounce to a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma patient over 2 years, when the norm would be just a dozen for 2 years. So 56 doses.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just making the money. He was billing Medicare. And you all were saying some interesting things about that as far as the way people look at you know.
I think one of the real downsides to a story like this coming out is looking at it in the context of the political arena. I mean, there has always been a fight for 40 years of Medicare and Medicaid of conservative Republicans fighting against these programs because they argue that they're fraud. You know, there's fraud throughout the system. I mean, this becomes a poster child for the folks, the Republican Tea Parties on Capitol Hill, when Democrats and others are trying to help Americans, improve their existence. In this case, in terms of health care, it all goes in. We've got Obamacare still in the mix too, and challenges to it throughout the states and throughout and on Capitol Hill. A story like this really, really, really is a black eye for I think a couple of the strongest programs that government has ever produced.
Wow.
And it also lends the opportunity to get more than one opinion. You probably, we discussed this before, you probably want 2 or 3 opinions when it comes to subject matters like cancer and other types of enormous illnesses like that. You want to get that second and third opinion.
But in the United States, where our medical treatment is more reactionary versus preventative, it leaves the door open for individuals to constantly take advantage. And so I've been actually doing some research with the Affordable Care Act that's coming in early next year, and it's going to force these doctors to be more of preventative based. And so, I'm going to hold my judgment just yet and really see how it's really going to play out. But this doctor, it appeared that he played on the relationship that you have with your doctor. I have a very close relationship with my doctor, and I take what he says, very highly. But I think that in terms of individuals who may be up in age, a little older, they're not thinking all the time, to get a second opinion, because they're looking at this individual as an advocate for them, and sometimes they're all they have. So.
And I would add that I know the federal government is cracking down on these type of schemes, all types of schemes related to Medicare, Medicaid, even medical instruments. They really cracking down. He's going to receive a lot of time off of this. I wouldn't
If he's
out there.
convicted.
Oh, he will be.
If he's convicted, with the money he has, he can hire the best lawyer in
house
the
he
country.
had was,
Yeah, his house.
Mansion.
Well, let's go on to our local news,
Yeah.
and you know our local news is always full of news. And Ken, you wanted to first
Absolutely.
discuss about Mr. Kilpatrick and Mr. Ferguson.
Absolutely. Local news is bad news for former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick and city contractor Bobby Ferguson. Both gentlemen had their bid to have a retrial really snuffed out by Nancy Edmonds, the federal court judge who oversaw their trial that ended this spring. No new trial for Kilpatrick and Ferguson, and meanwhile, both men are scheduled to be sentenced the first part of next month, and so it looks like all avenues have pretty much been exhausted for Kilpatrick and Ferguson, and they will be sentenced on September 3rd and 4th next month.
Wow, that's amazing. And we were talking on the Women's Show with attorney Tiffany McEvans, and she was saying how it's just odd how they were pronounced guilty and then taken straight to jail and didn't get any time to spend with their families and so forth. So I wonder why that happened.
Well, I really think that, in my opinion, I believe that a lot of folks believe that they still have money out there. Both the Kilpatricks and Ferguson have money out there, and you know, some of the dealings Kilpatrick was having before with money being sent. Was it
picking up
Western
money,
Union,
yeah.
picking up money
Picking up
from
money
out
at
of the
Walmart,
city, sneaking it in his pocket, whatnot, and just all types of stuff. They just thought he was a flight risk. And with those type of issues, yeah, you see people going home to settle their issues at home, typically when you're dealing with a federal case like that. But I'm pretty sure the prosecutors say he was a flight risk. And, you know, a lot of dealings adding up with even with the state issue when he was going around across the country.
There were several parole violations. I mean, I think it's hard for us to kind of put all this stuff in a chronology because it was an issue that, you know, this whole set of cases is 5 years old now. When they get sentenced next month, it'll have been the 5-year point from which Kwame Kilpatrick resigned as mayor. And so it's kind of, when you add these things up and look at them in chronology, you do sort of see why Nancy Edmonds made the decision that she made. I mean, he violated parole in a couple different cases several times.
And I think that as much as I agree with both of you, there's really a concerted effort to close the book on this. You know, there's a lot of synergy that's going on and attention that's being paid to Detroit right now. And I don't really think that they want the conversation to be Kwame Kilpatrick and the media following him and seeing what he's doing with his family or anything like that. And so I think that
The media does. They sell newspapers and
well, yeah,
radio,
but I don't think that that's real. I think it's more of this is a nail in a coffin. Well, the final nail will be sentencing, and you know, the conversation regarding the city of Detroit is now shifted past the Kwame Kilpatrick era.
Yeah, I agree.
Wow. Yeah, I guess you're right about that. But, you know, it seems like I remember being on tour at the time when Kwame started running, and I stayed at the house of a very promising couple. I mean, not promising, a prominent radio personality, and his wife, and everybody across the country, they were kind of pulling for Kwame. And it's just sad the way that turned out.
Tragic.
Tragic. And speaking of mayors, we had a mayoral race, and we had a lot of candidates, but 2 rose to the top. Chris, did you want to start talking about that?
Yeah, with 100% of the precincts reporting, Mike Duggan, you know, showed a commanding lead with 46% of the vote, over 44,000, with Benny Napoleon tallying a little over 28,000. And so I don't think it's a surprise that those 2 were the front runners. I think that many individuals may have been a little bit surprised as far as the margin between them. But I'm sure my co-panel will speak on the fact that in many people's opinion, there hasn't been any content as far as real conversation. And so, you know, statistics kind of showed that this could have happened. Many people didn't want to believe it, but and I don't think the Mike Dugan fiasco, Dudgeon, which I might want to say that he received a total of 17 votes.
All that media attention.
17 votes, and so you know, I think that what folks are really looking for, and the statistics show, they're looking for some real conversation, and not, as my co-panelists would say, sloganeering. But I'm sure he'll actually expound on that a little bit more.
Just before he does, I want to say that I've heard several times on the radio and television this week people who've called in and said that it is impossible, statistically impossible, for all those write-in votes, for him to get all those write-in votes. And those are the write-in votes. There were 5,900 other write-in votes that haven't even been tallied yet. What do you say about that?
Well, I think it's just it's still 60% of the votes that hasn't been tallied yet. But I believe that Brian Barnhill and Douglas' campaign really had, I mean, they had their solid base. They have young professionals. They have a mixture of both white and black. They have that base, and they ran with it.
Well, let's take a quick call. Let's take a quick call, because I want to hear what Ken has to say about that. Good afternoon, caller. Hello? Hello?
Hi, yes, this is Tabia with Tabby Green Shop.
Hi.
Hi.
Did you have a comment?
Yes, I really would like to elaborate more on the international perspective. Could you talk a little bit more about how this is going to impact the economy nationally?
Which thing is going to impact?
So basically, I'm really concerned about the health and wellness concerns. I'm really interested in the health and wellness aspect.
Oh, what we were just talking about as far as the doctor was concerned, and about Obamacare and stuff like that?
Yes, ma'am, because health and wellness is really critical for our community today. Like, for instance, I'm a small businesswoman, and I'm here at Fort Bragg. I've been making a health and wellness product for the military and the Pentagon, and Walmart has made this opportunity to put the product out on the shelves. But at this time, I need the community to really rally behind it, because truly, healthcare is the way to go. If, in fact, we can reduce the amount of preventive care, that we can reduce the amount of health care by using health and wellness products as preventive care.
Are you here in the area?
To help the Obama plan.
Ma'am, are you here in the area?
North Carolina.
Yes, I'm actually, I'm right as I speak. I'm at Fayetteville. I'm at the Fort Bragg.
Oh, okay. I did hear that. Because the reason why I asked is it would be, could you email me some information about it, and I could maybe slot in some time to have you call in or something and we talk about it?
Oh, most definitely. Timing is of essence. The Walmart on the shelf program, you have to go out and vote for the bean spray at http://tiny.cc/BEANSPRAY. That's bean spray. If in fact we can get the community to vote for the bean spray, then we can get more health and wellness products at the Walmart businesses.
Well, that's a good thing. Would you send me, I'm going to give you my email address, okay?
Yes.
You ready?
Yes.
B as in Brenda.
Yes.
Perryman, PERRYMAN, TV33 at live, LIVE.com.
All right.
Just send me some information, because, yeah, we kind of passed that. We have just such a full agenda right now. But we can talk about it at a later date, probably on the show. And we have another caller.
Thank you very much. I'd like to talk more about the bean spray, get it on the shelf at Walmart with you. I'll contact you and send you an email today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another caller. Yes, caller? Hello?
Yes.
Yes?
Hello?
Hi, who am I speaking with?
Speaking with Chuck Williams.
Hi, Chuck. Did you have a comment?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I
Yes.
feel like we need a lot of love and a lot of unity.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. It's been a kind of crabs in a barrel mentality going on around here. So, did you want to talk to any of the panelists?
No, I don't speak to you, speak to everybody. But look, this is the deal.
Yes, I'm listening.
We do not need anybody lying and stealing and getting their hand caught in the cookie jar.
Right.
See, we're at a critical juncture right now in our history as black people.
Okay, yes, and it's time for us to love one another and really get it together, shake each other up and get it together. I agree with that.
Because, you know, at the end of the day, all we got is God, family, and extended family.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we cannot allow anyone to just come and just dog us around and treat us like we're slaves, because we're not slaves.
Who is doing that? Who is doing that, sir? Chuck?
The powers that be, white folks, you know, white folks, because we won't buckle down and become no slaves.
Well, I don't know. I'm not being treated like that, and I think everybody isn't being treated like that, and I don't even consider that. I don't buy into that personally.
Well, you're a female.
Well, I have a son. I have a son. I mean,
And see-
and what he feels, I feel. So,
What? We have not gotten a fair shake since slavery was abolished. But it's time now.
well, thank you. Thank you so much for your call, and that's something we're going to talk about. Thank you so much for your call. Thank you, Chuck. Now, Ken,
Yes.
you were getting ready to say something about, we were talking about the race and the write-in candidates.
Well, you know, a couple days after the election, I think a couple thoughts come to mind. One, I think that clearly the results aren't that surprising to me. I mean, several weeks ago, I predicted that Mike Duggan would be the next mayor of Detroit. So, I mean, I saw him getting through this process if he was going to.
Well,
be on the
at that
ballot.
number, at that wider
No,
margin?
you know, to be honest with you, not really, Brenda. When you think about the campaign between, you know, the month of June and July, I mean, you had one campaign that was robust, that was very aggressive in the Duggan campaign, and you had another that was on cruise control. And I think the Napoleon campaign knew that they would finish either one or two, knew that they would make the cut, if you will, and really sort of mailed it in, and the results show that. What you're going to see is, and you know, we've talked about Napoleon at 46% now, you know, and that's because that's with a write-in and a circle of the oval.
Napoleon or Duggan?
Duggan, excuse me. Duggan with 46% as a write-in. I mean, what would have happened had he actually been on the ballot? I think this is instructive for the Napoleon campaign. I think they can certainly still win it, but they're going to have to do some things differently. The whole Detroit is a hobby, not my Detroit is a hobby, or the home, not my hobby thing doesn't really resonate with people. I mean, I live in the city, and that's not really interesting to me. What's interesting to me is presenting a plan. Napoleon didn't do it. Now, quite frankly, Duggan hasn't done it either. He hasn't done it either. But he had a different sort of hurdle to get over. His hurdle was trying to educate people so he could stay alive. The Napoleon people had a free shot to put a plan out there, and they didn't.
Yeah, but I agree with you, but not wholeheartedly. Now, Duggan had a lot of finances backing him. He had the media helping him out on helping out on his name, helping him out the write-in campaign. I mean, he had a lot of stuff going for him. I mean, this presents an opportunity for Napoleon, and we talked about this before, for him to grab on to young professionals, just like Duggan did. He needs to reach out and cross into even the, 10, 15% of the white folks who's here in the city. He needs to grab on to them. He needs to go into the Hispanic area. His message has to be broader than what you said before, just the little slogans. He has to broaden his message so he can gain some more ground. Now, granted, it was 17 to 18% of the people who actually voted out of the folks that's registered to vote, out of 560,000 people in Detroit that's registered to vote. So you have, what, 80-something% more, 82% more people to reach on to.
Turnout is always 17 to 21%. I mean, the last 4 political cycles, the reality is turnout has been between 17 and 21%. Look, professional campaigns know where the voters are in Detroit, and both Napoleon and Duggan know where they are. I think Duggan did a better job of reaching them.
He did. I agree with that.
Okay, we have a couple of calls. First caller, good afternoon. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hi. It's
How you doing?
Brenda Perryman. Who am I speaking
Hello,
with?
can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Who am I speaking with?
Patricia.
Hi, Patricia.
Patricia.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, hi, I hear you.
Well, I have 3. Yeah, I can hear you very, very loud and clear. I have 3 questions for the panel. Okay. The first question I want to ask them is why? Okay, where are we standing in the bankruptcy? And why they keep bashing Detroit? And we had a game with the Tigers, and they kept talking about Detroit bankrupt, but we won, didn't we? And I hang up, and y'all answer those questions.
We swept them.
Yeah.
Robert might have a better take on the process of bankruptcy.
Well, regarding the baseball game, we really killed them, and we're on the road. What's it, 12 games in a row so far?
Yeah.
But I mean, personally, I think it's. Yeah, the city's struggling financially, but I was telling some folks, some of my buddies coming in town, and they're trying to pick up property. They understand what municipal bankruptcy is, and they're coming in here and picking up property, which I don't see Detroiters doing, or people even in the area picking up more and more property here to take advantage of some of the sales.
People are calling from China, buying up property here in Detroit.
All over the world.
My thing is, I'd like to get together, with 2 or 3 people. We buy some property. That's what people need to do. We have to be proactive as opposed to, they're buying up property. Yeah, but maybe even if 5 good people get together, they could start buying up some property too.
What's funny about that, I think Louis Farrakhan said that the other day, 2 months ago, how people need to garner their money together and start buying up property piece by piece. But I was telling some folks before out of state that I think it's, they think that Detroit is, a third world country. And I'm like, I'm showing them around, I'm saying, hey, look, does this look like a third world country to you? But you'll see more and more the majority coming here and buying up things that's in the city, especially that midtown, downtown area. Even in our prosperous areas, Indian Village, Palmer Woods, Rosedale community. You see people coming in there and buying things, but you don't see them, you don't see any minorities doing the same thing.
Right. We have a call. I think we have another call. Good afternoon, caller.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. I have to go along with Claude Anderson. If anybody ever viewed the Hidden Colors 2 or even 1, what he's saying is so true. The votes have never done a damn thing for us. I'm sorry. But if we were to study group economics and to put our dollars in our communities and buy our own schools, run our own businesses, schools, hospitals, and so on and so further, and buy the politicians and the police department and the politicians, because right now, if you even look at Zeitgeist 2, it tells you how the corporate greed, the central banks, the Federal Reserves are all fraudulent agencies that came together, and they were able to manipulate the currency to a point that they own the gold, they own the politicians, the judge, the jury, the military.
You said
and
something.
It goes so deep that if we did get a good leader in that was for the people, he would be assassinated by CIA or the military. So until we get our group economics and our dollars together, our votes are not counted worth a darn on.
Excuse me, I would like to say to you, as far as the education piece is concerned, I think that like for boards of educations, they have people on boards of educations who don't know anything about education. And you just can't have just anybody coming on. They try to give them a quick, they go to retreats and everything like that, but when you talk about our own schools and stuff like that, our children have to get a global education. They can't just have a black education. They have to get a global education because they're not all going to stay here. People are going to go out into the world. We want them to go out into the communities and the world and have them be able to function out there too and be able to talk to anybody and make their way. Gentlemen, what do you have?
I was going to touch on a point that the caller made, which she did make a valid point as far as controlling our local economy. I read an article in a periodical that spoke about Detroit specifically and how there's a group of individuals who have come to Detroit. They're based out of Dearborn, and I'll give you a little hint. And their goal is to get 10 out of $11 in the black community. And it even went further to talk about how once that money is out of the black community, it's circulated inside their community. So I agree with you there that to gain a larger voice, yeah, we do have to become more savvy as far as in business, in our dealings, as far as the economy and things like that. But there is a responsibility that we cannot continue to look at everyone else's house. There's a lot of things that as a community and I'm sure as individuals, we can say that we need to tighten up. And so while I agree with you on some of your points, there are still some differences that I just don't agree with.
I also think
I really don't have a problem with people being educated to the point that we have to deal and we have to compete globally. I understand that piece. But at the same time, if we own nothing, we become the weakest population, and this is why we're under attack.
We all agree with you. We all agree with
nothing,
you.
And we don't teach our own children their cultures and their history so that they know that they are powerful and that they can go anywhere anybody else can.
Well, think about it. Think about it real quick that our children know a lot more about our history, or should. I know I taught it. I know it was taught in the schools that I've been in, that I got none of it when I was coming up. And none of it. I didn't have that base.
It's a lot of it that they're not getting as well. They won't even allow this Hidden Colors 1 or 2 on the air because it's so deep about so much that has been hidden and stolen. That's the type of education they don't want them to know. Thank you.
I appreciate your call, and we have other callers. Thank you so much for your call.
Thanks.
Good afternoon, caller.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I'm Miss Marcia. I'm one of the persons 100% for Mr. Mike Duggan.
Yes, I know.
I think the world has changed. We haven't elected an African-American president. Things have changed. Our perception, the whole paradigm of society has changed. We all, my friends are white, black, African, Chinese, Mexicans. We all went to the polls and voted for Barack Hussein Obama. And this is the reason why we think that Mr. Duggan is the best candidate. I have two neighbors' children graduated from Michigan State. They both have left Detroit. I'm a great-grandmother. Our grandchildren said, there's nothing there for in Detroit for us. And I think that Mr. Duggan can attract people back to this city. I think that he can attract people. You talk about corporation and small business. The job creators. It's not a mayor. It's not city council. Are not job creators. And I think that you don't know the structure and the function of city government. They are not job creators.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Van Gilbert contracts that he has. The city council and the mayor's office gave those contracts to them. The city council and the mayor's office are the people who have built downtown and midtown. So I mean, you got to understand. We are a capitalist country. I love capitalism. One day I could be poor, the next day I could be wealthy.
Right. Thank you. And yes, I agree with that. I agree with that this is a global society. And I know my son lives out of state, and he has to travel across the country for his job, and he has to be able to communicate with everybody, all types of people. See, we have to let people know that there are more people in this world. Gentlemen, did you have a comment on that before we go to our next caller?
I was going to say that's part of the Dugan's slogan and campaign.
Duggan.
He wants to bring more business here. More businesses agree with his plan. That's why you see your Penske's, your Gilberts donating money to his PAC. He has that down pat. That's why you see more and more people going with his campaign. Now, on the other side, Napoleon needs to get some of that. He needs to talk that type of language. Not just solely safety. He needs to go into the business world and garner that type of same type of attention that Duggan is getting right now.
Well, my neighbor, son was working for Dan Gilbert. Okay, Dan Gilbert gave my neighbor's son a job. And so, I mean, we need businesses here to spur small businesses. If you don't have Obama told all of you all to remember, this is a global society now. You are not competing with black man and the white man has a deal business. What haven't you done? You don't even clean up your own neighborhood. It was 8 young boys, black boys playing basketball, and it was white males from the suburbs cutting an 88-year-old black woman's yard. And down the street, it was 8 young black males playing basketball. Come on, clean your neighborhood up. Nobody's going to bring their little babies to a neighbor and step through a trash can to get downtown. That's our fault. You had 40 years of political power. Malcolm and Ralph Brown told you that political power is nothing without economic power.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for calling us today, and I'm glad you're watching. Thank you, Ms. Marcia. Well, that was interesting. We had, and she's right about the point of everybody has to live here together, everybody. And we want good schools so that the children that you raise, if you want to raise your children in Detroit, they can go to good schools. Right now, some of the schools are very, very sketchy.
Well, I think attracting business is an important dynamic, but it's only one part of the equation. You still, with any type of leader, a leader should be someone that someone can relate to and feel that they have some type of connection with. So while I'm not disagreeing with you, I think that attracting business is an integral part of the resurgence of Detroit, of southeastern Michigan. But I also think that there needs to be these other categories that are addressing, and I would like to throw out a hypothetical question. If Benny Napoleon was white, would that make a difference? Even keeping his same dialogue. Is the reason why Duggan is attractive to business owners because, Ken talked about it, the conversation really hasn't been there from any candidate. What is the stark difference?
Well, I think
the black and white thing.
Well, and I didn't even go to black and white, although I think race matters. It always does. I think one campaign worked harder than the other.
Okay.
And and albeit I'll certainly concede that one had a very different reality facing him than the other one. One had to fight just to really stay alive, let alone to get in the race. The other, but I think that was the great missed opportunity for Benny Napoleon, and that he was perceived as the front runner, and some people will probably argue that he still is the front runner, and that gave him an opportunity to present a plan. Here's one great example. Looked at the Napoleon for Mayor website this morning. We know that Benny Napoleon is a 40-year law enforcement professional, both as chief of police and the Wayne County Sheriff. You look at his plank on crime, he says he will deliver a plan that will reduce crime by 50%. Now, it seems to me on August the 9th, there should have already been a plan out there, particularly if that's your vocation. I think, again, in sort of reframing the mayoral race, now that's down to 2 people, I think Mr. Napoleon is certainly going to have to come up with a plan and get some fire. I don't know that he's going to be able to fundraise Duggan, but he certainly will have to do that too. He's got to act like he wants it. And to me, just looking from the outside in, it didn't look like he wanted it. It looked like Mike Duggan did.
Well, he's certainly going to have to get some fire in him. And like I said before, he has to cross over to become what the caller said before, more of a global type of candidate versus just the blacks in Detroit.
Right, right, right. Yeah, he has to expand his reach and everything like that. I don't know what happened because when Duggan got out of the race, I just thought Benny just rose, you know.
They didn't even go to a lot of the forums, I'm told. I mean, I'm not going to, I'm writing a book, I'm not going every day.
Attend a lot of them.
Who didn't?
Napoleon did.
They've been running a Rose
There's
Garden
quite a
type
few
of
he
campaign.
did miss. Now, granted, we had this conversation earlier. Duggan doesn't have a job. Benny does. It can afford Duggan to go out there and shake hands and kiss babies all day, while even Benny had to leave one of the forums to go to his job.
That's a great point.
But yeah, he has more time on his hands.
We have a call, gentlemen. Good afternoon, caller.
Well, thank you. Happy Friday to all of you.
Hi, Theo. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. I agree with the panelists that Sheriff Napoleon does have other responsibilities in addition to the campaigning that he was doing, and I still think that between the two of them, he is the front runner, regardless of the report. But you had a caller who keeps talking about how dirty the city is, and the neighborhood I live in is not nasty. And I know around my house I pay an arm and a leg to keep my property up. But anyway, within this campaign that's been going on, it appears to me that the candidates all have a platform, but they seem to be hesitant in putting it forth because each time that there was an idea put forth, I started hearing it from other candidates. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
They pick up the ideas from each other. Some would adopt it as their own. You know, when it comes to the black and white issue, Nolan Finley was the one who started that with his column in the paper. The city of Detroit was established prior to the state, Kenny, as you know. And if you talk about 40 years of African Americans being in political positions in the city of Detroit, subtract 40 from, 312? We have been voting for European Americans for decades. So what is the issue when we want to vote for someone that, as your other panelists said, we can relate to, who looks like us? Obviously, our people have a great deal of talent as well as intelligence. You can see that by the person who is in the president's position of the United States.
Right, right. Well, I thank you. Oh, was there a comment?
No, I was just going to say that I've heard that sentiment and that emotion in many people, that there's a dynamic in the city that I don't know that many folks are talking about, where there's a group of folks that still hold that a black leader can lead Detroit, and then there's this other faction of folks to just say, well, you know what, the last 40 years was a debacle, so let's let them have it. That's really where the conversation has gone, and I want to just chime in, as a lifelong, child of Detroit. That other caller, most of Detroit is beautiful. A lot of Detroit is beautiful, and I think that the highlight is always on the negative, but I grew up in great areas.
Right.
I grew up in phenomenal areas, and you'd be surprised now when you're in those areas, the different variety of folks that you see driving up and down those streets. So they recognize the jewel that we have here in the city as well. So
that's why they're buying it up.
Yep, absolutely.
And there are those who say there are people who are suffering from, post-slavery traumatic syndrome. There are those who want to prove that they can be so fair. I will prove to you that I can be fair. I will vote for a white person, and that's no proof at all.
Well, don't you think some people are just voting, not necessarily black or white, they're just voting for the candidate who has the message for them?
Has the most money to make them believe the message is for them?
Sometimes it is the message, Theo. Sometimes it is the message, and maybe I don't think anybody, I agree with Ken, anybody has been laying down a very prominent message, but Robert, you went to most of the debates, right?
Yeah, I went to most of the forums and debates.
And as far as you're concerned, what did you hear?
I mean, I kind of like some of the other candidates too. Now the majority of candidates were, they didn't want to admit that we needed an emergency manager. They didn't want to admit that we're bankrupt. And you have Duggan, on the other hand, saying, hey, we're in a situation, we need to get out of it. You know, his message was, I turned around businesses, I can turn around Detroit. I liked even Lisa Howes, her message. She even had a bankruptcy forum to educate the community on what bankruptcy actually means. You know, I commend her and her campaign. She didn't have much money. She didn't. She got 6% of the vote. So the message didn't resonate with the people. It was the top two, Benny and Duggan, that did. I mean, both of them were I guess the popular vote. Their name resonated amongst the community a lot more. But yeah, I went to the forums, and you know, Duggan's campaign resonated with people, especially turning around in business, getting more businesses here, businesses mean more jobs, you know, things like that.
Right, right.
I think they all, you know, it's down to two now. It's down to Napoleon and it's down to Duggan. And as Robert pointed out a little bit earlier, I don't know that either one of them have really presented a plan. Yeah. The Duggan people will actually tell you, no, we haven't. We've been working on it. We've been wanting to talk about it, but we spent all this time just trying to stay alive. The Napoleon people, for whatever reason, and I do think that there's something to what Theo's saying. I mean, I've been part of campaigns, and I know there's sort of a gamesmanship in terms of releasing things.
That's
because
right.
Because somebody will steal your message, and it's all about timing. But the only argument I would make to your point, Theo, is I think when you are the home team guy, as his supporters say he is, and you only get 30% of no matter what percentage of turnout it is, it says something about what your campaign is doing and what it isn't doing. Yeah. And so what I'm saying is maybe the gamesmanship at which, you know, by which you release a plan, maybe you need to throw that out of the window and start presenting some plans if you want to be the next mayor of Detroit.
And that's why we have we have to educate the voters. Yeah. The voters need to be educated on what to listen for, what really, you know, it's a lot of times too, people get into the personality.
Yes, I agree with both of you on that. But it had been reported early on, number one, Duggan paid $56 for each vote. But number two, it has also been said that they agreed among themselves that they would not slander each other in any way during the primary, and they did not. There was no negative from Duggan against Napoleon, and there was no negative from Napoleon against Duggan. You agree?
Not yet. We'll see what
well, that's what 527s are for, and third-party validators are for. They may not do it personally, but you know those PACs. They already have. I mean, they've been doing it for 8 weeks now. Well, that's not going to stop.
The gloves are off now for the November election.
It'll be nasty.
So you should see some sparks flying.
It'll be nasty.
Well, the adventures and the journey. And thank you for calling, Theo. We have another call. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, caller. Hello?
Yes, yes.
Yes, who am I speaking with?
Speaking with John.
Hi, John. Your comment?
See, people fail to realize, see, Mike Duggan used to work for Ed McNamara.
Yeah, I think, well, most of us know that here.
Okay, Ed McNamara headquarters is in Livonia.
Right.
He always wanted to take over Detroit. Okay, so now.
How do you know?
This guy.
But how do you know?
Before he died, he wanted control of Detroit, but he could never get it because Coleman Young was in office.
I was just saying how, you know, where you get your particular facts. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I just wanted to know how you knew.
But see, we have to understand that white people want control of Detroit. Once again.
Okay.
Robert, I'm going to interject a little bit here because, you know, I just came back here in 2010. I'm a Detroiter, born and raised here, went off to school in other states. But I'm back here in school, and I'm back here living here. But what we don't know, as folks in my generation, I mean, a lot of us don't know about the McNamara era. They don't know. I mean, Ken, I think you may know. I don't think a lot of folks know about that, or, you know,
look,
if that even matters in this campaign.
I don't think it does. Look, with all due respect to the caller, I mean, Look, Ed McNamara continued to be Wayne County executive 10 years after Coleman Young left office. If your argument had real strong credence, he would have taken over Detroit. I mean, here's what I think we need. If I could just finish, here's what we need to leave on the cutting room floor for the 2013 mayoral general election. Let's talk about plan and program. All these conspiracy theories and platitudes and sloganeering, I mean, it's cute. I mean, it makes great kicker material and television material. But the reality is, for all of us who have lived in Detroit, and I suspect that you are one of them, I certainly am, I want to see services improve. I want to see a plan from both the finalists that speak to that. And that one of the reasons why I don't have a candidate to support at this time is I haven't heard that. And I think all Detroiters should be upset at that. The conspiracy theories and stuff are cute. I mean, they make for great, mini-series and all this stuff we sort of kind of what-if stuff we like to laugh about, but it's serious business in Detroit. And I would rather not talk about race. I know race is always there. Well, can I finish, sir?
Yeah, you got to hurry up. Okay. We have two more calls and 5
race is always there. Let's talk about plan.
Sir,
I've been here all my life.
I have too, brother, 45 years.
And I'd like to thank you for your call. We only have a few minutes, and we have more callers. Thank you so much, John. Next call, please. Hello?
Hello, am I on the air?
Yes.
The same power players who paying for Dugan's campaign are the same one that controls the politics here in the city. You got the downtown development that pays no taxes, the Dan Gilbert, the Penske, and anybody else that is filthy, white, and rich. They control the gold, so they control the souls, be it the politicians and the communication media, so that they can continue to dummy down the people and make decisions that would only favor their interests and not the people's.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please. Hello?
Hi, Brenda. It's Clyde. So I just find it appropriate. I should close it out, huh?
Yeah. Got about a minute. We had so much.
With my daughter. I'm going to reserve the biggest portion of my comments for next week, but I still say the clerk's office.
You're breaking up, Clyde.
Pardon?
You're kind of breaking up, going in and out.
I'm breaking out? Okay. The clerk's office, I believe, more so than the mayoral campaign in our city right now, is a bigger priority even than Duggan or Benny Napoleon seat. Again, I'm going to put out a call for a challenge for you, Ms. Perry, all your gentlemen guests there, and all the callers. Get certified as the challenger and sit down there at Cobo and watch the process of your elections. You will first be saddened, and then you will be outraged. I was there. That's something. I don't care if you're supporting Beryl, Crittenden, Lisa Howes, Aurora, anybody else. It is horrible. Janice Winfrey runs a horrible N-word crap campaign and election representing our city. We have to get a handle on that. We have to get a handle on that. That's all I'm going to say for now, and I'll reserve about my other portions next week.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Okay,
yeah,
thank
Clyde,
you.
I was an election protection worker in the 2012 campaign with the president, and I did see some wrongdoings and some things that should not have taken place, and some things that probably should have taken place. Very much so that the media came out, and I think it was like the lines. I think it was like 5,000 people in the line at Hereford High School, and it was only so many booths, so we had to go get extra.
That happened
like that.
in other districts, but not even only in Detroit.
Clearly, it wasn't in
Detroit.
I could say that campaign manager. I mean, not campaign, but the manager of that polling station left and went downtown. So he left no one in charge. And that type of stuff people see. It was people who actually left the line saying it's been turned too long. There's no leadership here. I'm out. So with that type of stuff, I'm not going to say that it all fell on Janice Winfrey, but she was the city clerk at the time. So.
You know, there's controversy with every city clerk, I've noticed. Haven't you, Ken?
You know, there's an old joke in politics. I mean, the winner is the person who can steal the election, right? I mean, there are irregularities in every campaign at every level. Part of it is clerks for big campaigns are dealing with it's not obviously not a volunteer force. They're paid, but they're not people that work these processes, you know, over time, 365 days. It was a training process. Look, I think both sides try to do everything they can to win an election, and sometimes they do it above board, and sometimes they do it below, under board. I do think that the clerk has to continually improve her game, but you know, this whole idea, what sort of is simmering under all this is that there's another conspiracy theory, that Mike Duggan got 46% of the vote because Janice Winfrey gave it to him. I just reject it. I mean, I respect a lot of people who argue it because they're good friends of mine. I know they're smart people, but I don't believe it. I think in this case, Mike Duggan worked harder than Benny Napoleon, and that's why he got 46% of the vote. And if Benny Napoleon wants to be the next mayor of Detroit, he had better work harder than he did the last 8 weeks.
I know I went to a neighborhood party, a birthday party, and Mike Duggan came on up in the backyard, didn't he, Chris?
Yes, man, they said Mike Duggan is DJing that party. I mean, he's there.
Yeah. He's there. Mike has more time on his hands.
Well, whatever it is, Robert.
He is.
Whatever it is.
We stated before that you think that Benny Napoleon may need to have a little recess with his job.
I doubt that he does it, but if he wants to win, he's going to have to.
One thing about you guys, every time it's time for the show to be over, you all just are into this catharsis and all this talking. We're done. I mean, the show is over. We didn't even get through our whole agenda. We never do.
Our callers, the most important people, were our
guests. They are. Yes, they are. And next week, I'm going to have the guys back with me next week, and we have a special show for you next week, hopefully. And, of course, you're special, and pass the word and agree with us. And like us on Facebook, too. We have a page on Facebook called Table Talk with Brenda Perryman, and please like it, because we like to bring you something different. And isn't it so nice to see guys on a panel? You know, you don't have that anywhere in Detroit, but here at TV 33 WHPR. Thank you, Henry Tyler. Thank you, everybody in the booth. Thank you, R.J. Watkins. And we will see you next week.
You're watching UHF TV 33, Detroit Highland Park.